friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about sling care, and if you didn't know, slings are baby tarantulas, or also known as spiderlings. So today I'm going to talk about how to take care of your slings and what to expect when you are expecting. First things first, I want to talk about sling housing. Make sure when you are putting your new tarantula sling in a new enclosure that the enclosure is 3 times the size of the sling, no bigger, no smaller. This is to help them find the prey that you leave them, and it also helps you keep a closer eye on them. For terrestrial and fossorial slings, fill the enclosure 2/3 of the way full, and for arboreal tarantulas, fill the enclosure 1/3 of the way. When setting up an enclosure for a tarantula sling, make sure that you are providing plenty of substrate, sphagnum moss, leaf litter, and a hide. This will provide everything that they need for their survival. Also, make sure when you are putting anything into the sling's enclosure, make sure it's not anything heavy like rocks. Plan to rehouse your slings every 2 to 3 months. This was something that I got caught up on. I thought I was only going to have to rehouse my slings every 11 months, but it turns out I've had to rehouse my slings every 2 to 3 months, and so make sure you have extra enclosures. Make sure when your sling is ready to be rehoused that you are rehousing them. This is going to help you become better at rehousing, and especially since you're starting off with a sling, it will be easier to grow with that sling and learn how to rehouse tarantulas properly without it being super intimidating. Now, how to feed your new tarantula sling. I recommend feeding your tarantula slings once a week for ample growth and nourishment. Baby tarantulas can molt a lot, and often making sure that you are feeding them at least once a week will ensure their survival. Now, when you are feeding tarantula slings, you're going to want to pick very small feeders for them. They will be easily intimidated by large prey, and that is why often I will pre-kill the prey before putting it in with the sling. And therefore, I do recommend you guys use pinhead crickets for slings. Yes, pinhead crickets. Not the smalls, not the mediums, not the large, the pinheads. And they are going to be like literally the size of a grain of rice and will be easy for your baby tarantulas to hunt and will be less likely to be intimidated by their prey. Now, when you do feed them, like I said, I recommend you pre-killing the prey before you leave it in with your sling. Slings are really small and vulnerable and can easily become lunch for one of your prey items, aka your crickets. So make sure you're not leaving any live prey unsupervised in with your slings. If you're going to leave the prey in with it overnight, make sure you're pre-killing it and leaving it in there, and then waiting the full 24 hours to take the prey out. I have noticed that some of my slings, they don't always necessarily eat within the first few hours, and sometimes they will go ahead and eat a couple hours later. So make sure you are giving them plenty of time and opportunity to eat their meal. And that's also why, we put them in the small enclosures so that they can easily find their food and hunt their food. Hydration. Hydration is extremely important for the survival of your slings. To help keep your slings hydrated, I suggest misting regularly. So for like your slings that are less than 1 inch, I know a water dish is probably going to be a little too much. So you can just mist your slings twice a week. On their web, you just mist a little bit of water on their web. They can drink it from the web, and they will also drink it from the soil. So don't worry about them having a water dish for, the first few months, especially if they are smaller than 1 inch. It doesn't really seem necessary to have that extra water dish in there. So just misting twice a week, I have found, is good enough. And I do notice that when I do go to mist my slings, they are usually thirsty and will drink the water. So that is why I'm saying to mist twice a week and not just once a week. These are babies and they do require a little bit more work than your bigger tarantulas. And for your slings that are bigger than an inch, if you are using a water dish, please make sure you are still misting as needed and refilling the water dish as you go. Make sure you are at least checking on your tarantulas twice a week to make sure that they don't need anything, any water, any, clean water dish. My tarantulas tend to, pardon me, but poop in their water dishes quite often, so I am always checking to make sure that they don't need a clean refill or anything like that. So make sure you are paying attention to them. And if that is not something you can do, slings are not for you, and I do suggest you starting with an adult tarantula and in the genus of Aphonopelma or Brachypelma, because those spiders are much hardier and much better for beginners who are starting out. Humidity. So the next thing I want to talk about is humidity and why it's super important. So when tarantulas are babies, aka slings, they are very vulnerable and very susceptible to drying out. And this is why it is extremely important we provide sphagnum moss inside the enclosure with the sling, because sphagnum moss holds and provides humidity very well. So misting twice a week, you're providing the water that they need, and you're also providing the humidity that they need. So when slings are babies, they appear very waxy, very gummy looking, and that is just because they're extremely fragile. So making sure that you are providing enough humidity for them so that they don't dry out and die is very vital. I think that a lot of the reason why people do have slings pass away is because, one, they are not hydrating them enough, they are not keeping them humid enough, and that is why I'm here to tell you guys that it is very important to keep them humid. They're very susceptible to drying out, they're more fragile than your bigger tarantulas, and they just lack that really hardy layer of skin that your bigger tarantulas that you see have, and so that makes them more susceptible to other things like dehydration and drying out because they don't have that protective layer to keep that moisture in. So like I said, ways to provide humidity, you're misting regularly or providing a water dish. You're also keeping the substrate partially moist, so when you're misting, you're making sure that you're providing enough water to saturate the soil and substrate that's inside the enclosure, and therefore having that nice water gradient in your soil will help provide humidity. So when you first spray it, it's going to be pretty damp, and then a couple days go by, it's going to dry out, and by the next time you go to spray it, it's going to be either dry or it's going to be partially damp. And so making sure that when you are misting, making sure that part of the soil is damp for especially your more humid species. It's not very necessary to have partially damp soil with your more dry species like your green bottle blues, which it can actually have the reverse effect and actually harm your tarantula because they do not do well with humidity. So that is also goes in hand with doing your research about the specific species of tarantula that you're getting or getting into. They all come from different areas of the world and different environments, and so making sure we know their native home to help replicate that here in captivity to ensure their survival. And also, providing that sphagnum moss is a really good thing. You don't have to do it with all of your bigger tarantulas, but making sure when you're housing your slings, make sure you are providing that sphagnum moss in there because it provides great humidity, and if they need it, they can always have it with the sphagnum moss. So the final thing that I'm going to talk about today is temperature. Now, I know we don't talk about temperature a lot in the hobby, and I think this is why we are having a lot of deaths, especially when it comes to keeping slings. It is very important to know that slings do better with higher temperatures and do worse in colder temperatures. So when keeping baby tarantulas, it is very important to regulate the temperature of their environment, and here's why. Tarantulas are ectothermic, which means that they rely on the surrounding environment to regulate their body temperature. So if it's too cold in your house, your slings are not going to be able to regulate their body temperature. They're not going to be able to metabolize things. They might not even be able to move around because they're just too cold. So making sure that you are keeping your slings at a temperature of around 75 degrees. Doesn't mean it has to be exactly 75 degrees, doesn't mean it has to be less or more, but I am telling you guys, I have had success keeping my tarantula slings at 75 degrees during the day and 70 degrees morning and night. Tarantulas are ectothermic, which means that they rely on their surrounding environment to regulate their body processes. This includes growth and digestion, which means that warmer temperatures leads to faster growth and development in spiderlings. Temperature also plays a vital role in feeding and digestion. Warmth encourages appetite and helps spiderlings digest their food efficiently. A warmer environment leads to faster metabolism, which in turn helps them break down their food and absorb nutrients more efficiently. Immune system. Maintaining optimal temperature can support a stronger immune system in spiderlings, reducing their susceptibility to infections and diseases. Survival. Spiderlings, being smaller and more vulnerable than adults, are more susceptible to the effects of cold temperatures. Low temperatures can slow down their metabolism and make them more prone to illness and even death. In conclusion, keeping spiderlings warm is vital for their overall health, growth, and survival. Maintaining a suitable temperature range can contribute to their well-being and ensure they thrive in captivity. How to keep spiderlings warm if needed. So if you guys don't have a dedicated room or space to your spiderlings, a great way to keep all of your spiderlings warm and in one place is by placing them inside another aquarium and heating that aquarium with a heat mat. Now, when you use the heat mat, do not place it under the aquarium because that can lead to overheating your spiders and eventually killing them. So I recommend putting the heat mat on the side of the aquarium and using a digital thermostat to help regulate that temperature. If you don't use a thermostat for the heat mat, you can possibly run into overheating your tarantulas or not heating them enough. You just don't know how hot that heat mat is going to get without that thermostat regulating the temperature. Now, if you do have a room dedicated to your tarantulas, you can easily warm the room that you're keeping your tarantulas in to room temperature. So maintaining a temperature within the ideal range of 70 degrees can be sufficient for many slings. So you don't have to get too fancy smanchy with it, but just keeping the room that you're keeping them in at that 75 degree range, or putting them in an aquarium that can keep all of your slings warm and keeping it at that 75 degree range will help keep your spiderlings warm. Really quick, I wanted to show you guys some examples of sling cribs that you can get from Tarantula Cribs. This is their sling crib, the OG sling crib. It measures 2 by 2 by 3, and this is perfect to start with any of your tarantulas that are like 3/4 of an inch and below. And then I think a little bit bigger than that, you would want to get your 3-inch cube or your 4-inch cube. I know you could definitely put the 1-inch tarantulas in, or the 1-inch spiderlings into a 4-inch cube, and that'll work great. But anything smaller, these work great for. They also sell the arboreal sling cribs as well, and this has my false widow in it, and this is the difference right here. As this lid, it comes off from the side rather than the top, and that is so that for your arboreal species, you're not ripping the web off every time you go to take care of them or interact with them. You can just take this off the side, and then the webbing up here that they made is still intact. And I'll show you here with this. This is the OG sling crib, and this is for your terrestrial and fossorial species. And this, you can take the lid off the top, and this one does have dirt in it. It did house one of my slings. You guys, I've used these cribs for all of my slings and I have had great success with them. These have perfect ventilation to give you the right amount of humidity and airflow that you need to help dry out your enclosures throughout the week. It's just, yeah. But those are some examples of sling cribs that you can get from Tarantula Cribs. Okay guys, so that is all of the advice that I have to give you regarding sling care. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Also, I wanted to take a moment to thank my newest Patreon members, Shane and Jason. Thank you guys so much for your extra support and supporting me on the Patreon platform and becoming patrons of the channel. Thank you to all of my patrons that support my channel every single day and help fund all of my amazing, awesome, and crazy projects, especially with my breeding projects. I am pairing my Poecilotheria regalis tarantulas as we speak. They are not being bred right now, but Louis is hanging out in Diamond's enclosure inside of his own little enclosure. It's called shark tanking, and it's to make sure that the female is going to be receptive of him before I introduce him and possibly lose him. So due to cannibalism, if you guys didn't know, the female tarantulas will eat the males. So that is why I'm taking the time to properly introduce him to hopefully, cross my fingers, have a successful tarantula pairing here at My Peculiar Exotics. Also, you guys, I want to let you know that I am no longer going by the name Crybaby Tarantula. I am dropping that as part of my brand, and just because I do want to expand into different kinds of exotics other than just other than just tarantulas, and I want to provide care videos and everything else about other animals that I keep other than just tarantulas in the future. So that is why I am dropping the Crybaby Tarantula name, and I am now going by Jen's Peculiar Exotics officially. So with that said, I will be reaching out to Tarantula Cribs here very soon. I will be making a post on all social media platforms when I do change my Tarantula Cribs affiliate code, which was Crybaby 10, and I think it's going to be changed to JPE 10 or JP Exotics 10. So I will make sure to update you guys when I change that affiliate code so you guys can continue to use my code and support my channel and also save a little bit of money while shopping at Tarantula Cribs. So with all that said, Happy New Year's, you guys. Thank you guys all so much for the support throughout this year and watching my videos and just being amazing. I really appreciate all of you guys, and I can't wait to see what this year brings us. So thank you guys so much for watching, and remember friends, snakes, frogs, lizards, and spiders are your friends. Let's make a better world for them. Thank you so much for watching. Have a blessed week. Bye-bye.